What's shaking? My name's Cam, welcome back to another video. Thanks for sticking around. Sorry it's been a while, I was having a nap. Book reviews are a pretty contentious topic. On one side of the fence you've got readers who will say that reviews are for other readers only. That's it, they're not for authors in any capacity. While on the other side of the fence you'll have authors who strongly believe that negative reviews must provide detailed criticisms that can be justified by the review itself, or even be debated. Now, I don't 100% agree with either of those sides, but if I had to pick a side, it would probably be the former. Don't get me wrong, I think reviews can be just as much for the author as it is for the reader. I think that's pretty much realistically the only way for an author to gauge ways that they could improve their writing. But in no way, shape, or form do I think that reviewers are obligated to leave an in-depth explanation for their negative review. If a reviewer decides to leave 1 star and just say, I didn't like it, then they're free to do that. Maybe not in a professional sense. If it's a professional book reviewer, then we'd probably expect a little bit more. But no, I don't think they're obligated to elaborate on a negative or even a positive review. With that said, to be very clear, I am not a fan of the bandwagon reviewing, which is when basically an author has a controversy break out and waves of people will go there and give them 1 star. For the most part, despite not having actually read the book itself, in most cases when these author controversies break out, I think it's for good reason, and I think these authors absolutely should be called out in the way that they are. But doing this kind of review bombing practice, I think as a whole just kind of takes away from the legitimacy of reviewing in general. Again, even if the author sucks harder than a Dyson vacuum in your homie's bedroom.
I said don't disturb you, I'm cleaning my room!
One thing though, that you absolutely won't be able to convince me of is that it's appropriate for authors to be lashing out at reviewers. Look, even in the worst case scenario where the reviewer has completely misunderstood the point of your story or the book, some people say that that just 100% means that the author wasn't writing it effectively enough to give the right message, but I definitely think there's a lot of instances where the reader just completely misunderstands it. Even if that's the case, even if you have a zombie novel called Zombies Are Here, and there's a 1-star review that says, I'm not a fan of zombie books, I still think that the author engaging with that and, asking them maybe, if you don't like zombie books, why the fuck would you pick up a book called Zombies Are Here? I still think that's going to get them blasted online and, like we said before, review bombed. It's just a bad idea. And in a lot of cases where this happens, I think the author is lashing out for pretty arbitrary reasons. Rather than just saying that, I'll give you some examples. Lauren Hoff, who, I mean, it's quite a while ago now, but Lauren Hoff went and called pretty much everyone that reviewed her book 4 stars or less nerds and losers, which is an interesting approach. For 4 stars no less, which is like a better than average review. That's the point where you're pretty much talking about some of your fans. Shadiversity, the sword guy, who, despite how you feel about his sword content, has a pretty strong habit of getting very defensive and blowing up anytime anyone says anything negative about his book or his art. And that's not to say that some reviewers shouldn't be called out. Some reviewers suck. They do. Some reviewers suck. There's this habit in book reviewing that a lot of people do that I just think is so lame. It's when some reviewers try really hard to be funny in a very insulting way. Reviewers that use their book review as a stand-up comedy routine to make personal insults against the author. Being sassy and cruel because the book simply bored you isn't funny. It's cringe. It's cringe as fuck. I just think we spend a lot of time calling out authors for bad writing, as we should. But why don't we chat about some things that rub us the wrong way when it comes to reviews. Very quickly, I have a new in quotation marks, fantasy obsession. It's something I've been super head over heels interested with since I was like my very early teenage years, but I've only really been able to participate in it over the last year. I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons. I am in love with this game, and as someone who can only really express these things through a creative outlet, I simply have to make some videos about it. But I know D&D is very niche, so I won't be doing that here. I'll do that on a separate channel. It's a brand new YouTube channel where I'll be doing video essays and discussions, much like I do here, but about D&D. If you love D&D as well, or even if it's just something you're mildly interested in, like you're curious about it, you should check out that YouTube channel. There's a video there already. Link is in the description below. You want to know what one of my least favorite things is when I'm reading book reviews? When the reviewer says that they have to knock points off of the book for misspelling, and their examples of the misspelled words are things like color or favorite spelt with a U. Americans, I love you. I do. I love you guys. Thank you for Back to the Future. But there are other countries, guys, and in some of those countries, we spell words a little bit different. I feel like sometimes a bad review sells a book better than a good review. I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like pretty much most things, a lot of negative attention can push other people towards that thing just because they know that they usually disagree with you and they want to oppose you. They'll go that way. Like boycotting stuff pretty much never works, and in most cases it has the opposite effect because the people usually on the other side of the political aisle will want to spite you, the person boycotting it, so they will buy into it more than they would have in the first place. When it comes to books, I don't think it's as straightforward as that because books are so closely tied to a particular person, the author, rather than a company or a corporation, like when you boycott stuff. I think having a lot of negative attention around a book that you wrote is pretty damaging. Even in a best case scenario where you do sell a ton of books, in the long run there is still going to be an enormous amount of people, well, assuming on the scale of this controversy involved, there's still going to be an enormous amount of people that will flat out avoid everything you do going forward. Let's take it down a notch on a less serious example. Let's say that you write a book and you get a lot of bad reviews because the editing isn't good. There's a lot of typos, that kind of stuff. And you get a lot of bad reviews because of that. Most people will be able to look past something like that, but in this case, let's say they don't. You get a lot of bad reviews for the editing. 10 years pass, you've done a few more books, the editing is much better now, let's say even perfect. There's still going to be people that remember that first wave of bad reviews, assuming there was a lot of bad reviews, they're still going to remember that, and they're just going to, even if they hear that the editing is good now, they're just going to be like, nah. Reading a book can be a pretty big commitment, especially in fantasy when the books are usually so long. Usually people don't need a lot of reasons to just not pick up your book. So I mean, I agree with this comment, but at the same time, it's not something I would ever want. Even if the bad reviews resulted in a huge wave of sales, that's not something I would want tied to my name, I hate spoiler-free reviews. It feels pointless to me. Tell me specifically why you liked it and what worked and didn't work. Again, I'll stress, I don't think reviewers are obligated to give lots of details about why they liked or didn't like a book. But in this instance, spoiler-free reviews, I kind of have to disagree. I mean, I get why people don't like spoiler-free reviews because they can be super vague. For example, they could say like, I thought this character's character arc was really bad. And you're sitting there like, okay, but why? Why was it bad? How was it bad? I get that. But at the same time, I do think spoiler-free reviews are pretty important because a huge purpose of reviewing is to provide information for people who are considering buying the book. And spoilers can absolutely ruin books and movies and shows and games. Spoilers can ruin that stuff for people. There's a huge debate about spoilers not ruining stuff. A lot of people think that spoilers can't ruin stuff for you, and if it does, it means the story wasn't that good to begin with. I hard disagree with that, but that's a conversation for another day. Reviews where they've mistakenly conflated "I personally didn't love this book" with "this book is objectively bad" are fairly common, and I dislike them intensely. The caveat being that reviews are an inherently subjective thing. I feel like it kind of goes without saying when you read a review that both the reviewer and you reading it know that it's subjective, but on the other side of that coin, there are a lot of people that write their reviews like this is what they are saying is absolute truth. This character was boring. The character arc was bad. It was meandering. It was pointless. The author is a bad writer because I felt this way about these things. It's stuff that some reviewers do say. And while there's definitely room for debate about that being a truth in some cases, but at the end of the day, yeah, I both agree and disagree with this. Reviews are inherently subjective, but at the same time, some reviewers could take a step back, pull their head out of their own ass, and realize that this is just their opinion, you know? Reviews can be pretty pretentious, but so can authors, notoriously so. So, I just want to point out the first line of this comment here. I honestly read reviews mostly to validate my own perspective on a book I've already read. I feel like that is... I might be wrong here, but I feel like that might even be more than 50% of the reason that people go and find reviews. Reviews are, sure, yeah, a great way for people to get an idea if they'll like a book or not before they buy it. But I feel like most people that read reviews are reading it to kind of validate their opinions about a book. I'm one of those people, especially when I watch a movie or something when I go to the cinema. As soon as I get home, I'm usually looking up reviews to see if people felt the same way I felt about that thing, whether I really loved it or I really hated it, or there was a specific part in the movie that I thought was really good or really bad. I want to see if people are saying the same things I'm saying about it. I don't really know why, there's not really much of a purpose to it, but I think it's just about wanting to feel validated. And I have to imagine that's the same with books, because again, I've done it with books as well. For example, say there's a book that everyone is hyping up, everyone loves it, and then you go and read it, and you hate it. I think a lot of people in that situation would go look up reviews looking for people who felt the same way as they did, so they don't feel crazy. I don't know, I just think that's really interesting to think about. The audacity of so many reviewers to just absolutely trash authors for all of this stuff with an attitude that suggests they could have easily nailed all of these things. I hate that. It really rubs me the wrong way. It's a level of toxicity that I think just, first of all, doesn't belong here, and second of all, it's cringe. Like, stop. It's a fucking book review, man. Like, relax. It's not the end of the world. Anyway, that'll do it for now. But let me know in the comments below what you would consider a red flag when you're reading book reviews. Or here's another question. Where do you land on the whole readers versus authors debate? When do you think, or do you think it's appropriate ever for an author to engage with a reviewer? Despite my nap, I will be making plenty more videos on fantasy books, so if that's your thing, if you're a fantasy reader like me, then I would love it if you stuck around. Check out Rogue's Roll Call if you're interested in D&D. I am very excited to start uploading there. Well, uploading more. There's already a video there. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you watching this video after so long. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Catch ya.